If you're looking for some of the best ways to transfer points to different airlines to fly to Asia, or save a bunch of money to get round-the-world flights, this video is for you. Make sure you stay until the end because I'm also including some demos where you can watch me do some of these award searches with step-by-step directions in real time. Today, I'm joined by my Lynn in a free coaching session. Each week, I give out a free one-on-one points coaching session through my newsletter, which you can sign up for by using the link in the description box. You'll be able to ask me any questions you have about earning points, redeeming points, credit card strategies, or anything else on your mind in a one-on-one setting. Yeah, the 15 minutes is yours to ask any questions I can help you with on points and miles. So how can I help?
I have been thinking that I wanted to try to do like a trip to Vietnam with my mom. So I just wanted to get some pointers on how to do that, where to look, what airlines maybe would have availability.
Where are you based?
I'm in San Diego.
So you'll probably want to fly out of LAX when you do Vietnam. And then there's a few different ways to do that. So you can either fly into Japan and go south, or you probably could go through Singapore and then fly up a little bit. Singapore tends to be more expensive, but has really easy availability. So yeah, you have a lot of options. You could do United Polaris through Japan and then flying on down. Are you trying to do business class or economy?
Yes, business class.
Yeah, there was a lot of availability for United from Los Angeles. When are you going on your trip?
Date is kind of open. So, my mom is retired. It's really just a matter of talking her into going. And then my schedule is flexible. So that's open. I think we wouldn't go in the summer. Weather's kind of not great, really. Anytime that I think is maybe ideal and maybe not as popular.
Based off of the cards you have a good mix of American Express and Chase. So I think either Singapore Airlines or looking through Air Canada might be useful as well, because both Chase and Amex would transfer into those airlines. Yeah, and they tend to have pretty good availability for business class. First class is very difficult to get on Singapore, but business class is not bad at all.
So do you think it would even be possible to go to do 4 people?
I think you probably could find 4 people's worth on Singapore. You're probably looking at 80 or 90,000 points per person one way in business class. So you just want to make sure that you are earning enough points. But if you are booking stuff like 10 months out, which is when the calendar will open up, you should be able to find 4 on the same flight.
All right, something to plan. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was on one of your master classes. Oh, actually going back to, do you know of like good hotels to stay, like anything that you've heard of or that you have stayed in that are, good kind of redemptions?
I haven't been to Vietnam. It's on my list, but Park Hyatt Saigon, I hear, is really nice, and it's very cheap, and it's Park Hyatt, which is like their high-end luxury brand. So that's on my list. I think it's like a category 2 or category 3, so you don't need that many points to stay there. Max Miles Points went on his honeymoon to Vietnam, and they stayed at the Intercontinental. I think it's near Da Nang, but I don't remember exactly what city.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. So he has been there, and that looked like a really, really nice hotel as well. So you could do that. Oh, if you build in a long layover also with Singapore, that's like the best airport in the world. I would highly suggest giving yourself a long layover just to see everything that's there, because they have free samples of everything. I got a free Dior makeover while I was in that airport once. They have movie theaters in like 9 different languages, butterfly gardens, free massage chairs, art museum. They have a lot of stuff. So give yourself a long layover in Singapore. But yeah, Park Hyatt Saigon is one that I would definitely have high on my list.
Okay. So then the other thing I wanted to ask you about was, I know on one of the master classes you were talking about like an around the world trip. And at that time I was just like, I don't even understand what this is. I've seen like some other, like I saw the frequent miler doing some trips like that. So I kind of just wanted to ask you some pointers for planning something like that, because maybe in the next couple of years I was thinking I would take either one or both of my kids.
Most commonly is the ANA around the world, which is All Nippon Airways, a Japanese airline. And the rules are, there are 3 zones. There's like North and South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia. You must hit each zone at least once, and you must continuously travel east or continuously travel west. Once you've crossed from one zone into another, you can't go back. So you can't do like North America to Europe to South America to Africa, but you can do North America, South America, Europe, Africa. You need at least 3 stops. So you could do like North America, Europe, Asia, back to North America. You can do up to 8 stops. The whole thing needs to take, I think, at least 10 days, which obviously you're going to want it to take at least 10 days anyway, because it's a lot of flying. Generally, it's about 125,000 points per person round trip in business class. Easiest way for people to get these points is to transfer from Amex to ANA. It takes 3 days to transfer the points over. So that's where this is difficult, is you have to go on ANA's website, find all the flights that you want, write down the flight numbers, transfer your points over, pray for 3 days that the award availability doesn't disappear, and then call ANA, and then you have to read off the flights to a person on the phone because their website can't handle an 8-point booking. Really great value for your points, really convoluted to actually make it happen.
How far in advance should you?
As far as possible, like 10 months. And a lot of people go in being like, I'm going to take 8 business class flights and I'm going to like maximize it to the extreme. Maybe start with a 3 or 4 point around the world. Do like North America, a couple countries in Europe, Asia, back to North America, instead of some people try to cram in all 8. If one flight goes down, they are so stressed trying to get everything back up and running, especially ever since the pandemic. Availability has been a little bit more scarce on ANA, so it's been a bit harder. But that's the most common around the world trip. And then another one that's becoming more common is Air Canada. If you watch the recording of our most recent masterclass, there's a pretty good walkthrough there for how to do Air Canada around the world. And then Prince of Travel on YouTube also has a couple good videos on how to do like a mini around the world with Air Canada, because you can add stopovers for 5,000 points. So Air Canada is a pretty good one as well.
What cards transfer to them?
Pretty much everybody for Air Canada. For ANA, it's just Amex.
Okay. I think those were the 2 things I wanted to ask you about.
If you think of anything else, always feel free to reach out via email or via Instagram. I am always happy to help.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anytime. If you enjoy this type of content where it's more of a candid conversation about how to approach points, please let me know by hitting that like button, and be sure to subscribe for even more points and miles tips. We covered a bunch of information in that coaching session about how to fly to Vietnam or around the world using different airlines like Singapore Airlines or ANA. If you're just getting started with your points and miles, make sure you check out our free Points 101 course, where we will walk you through everything you need to know in order to make your first points redemption. You can download the free course at geobreezetravel.com/free course, or check out the link in the description box. And now, here's a step-by-step tutorial for how to find business class flights on Singapore Airlines. Alright, so in this tutorial, we are going to use Singapore Airlines to find a flight from California over to Vietnam. So once you go to singaporeair.com, we're going to click on Book Trip and Redeem Flights. So let's search for LAX to Hanoi, and let's just look pretty far out in the future. Let's go one way for now, searching in March, and let's just look for something at the end of March. We are looking for business class, and let's just do 1 adult for now. Let's go ahead and search. So here we can see most of the flights on this date don't have saver space available. They just have the advantage from 128.5 thousand points, but we do have this one flight from Los Angeles through Narita, then Singapore, then Hanoi for 107,000 miles in business class saver space. Then let's go ahead and see if there's any other routes available. So let's say we wanted to go from San Francisco instead, and then over to Da Nang. Same date is fine, business class, and let's actually see if we can find something for more than one person. Here we have San Francisco to Da Nang, and you have quite a few different options for flights where you go from San Francisco to Singapore to Da Nang. And if you wanted to do this complimentary stopover, you can do that in Singapore, but just keep in mind that you can only do that on the Advantage flight. You cannot do that on the saver route. Whenever I find good flights on Singapore.com, I always just like to see if it's available on Air Canada as well for fewer points. So let's check that one way, San Francisco to Da Nang, book with airplane miles on March 27. Let's see if there's 2 tickets available here. All right, then if we sort by lowest business class, here we have a mixed cabin that's 10% in business class, which is not what we want. But here we do have that Singapore Airlines flight from San Francisco to Singapore to Da Nang, all in business class for 87.5 thousand points plus $84 Canadian, which is quite a bit of savings versus what we found on Singapore Airlines website. So if you find something on Singapore Airlines, I would always check the same flight on Air Canada to see if you can get it for a little bit cheaper over here. The great thing about Singapore Airlines is that you can transfer nearly any type of points into your Singapore Airlines account. So if you have a hodgepodge of Chase, Amex, Citi, and Capital One points, you can pull them all into your Singapore Airlines frequent flyer account to get a great flight. If you're not sure what card to get in order to earn more points, I offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations, and we'll provide you with personalized recommendations based on your particular travel goals, budget, and lifestyle. And you can find the link to that in the description box as well. There's another fantastic airline for flying to Southeast Asia or doing round-the-world flights that we actually didn't even mention in that coaching session, and that's Cathay Pacific. They accept points transfers from Amex, Citi, Capital One, and Bilt. Here's how to find business class flights to Vietnam on Cathay Pacific. So here, let's use Cathay Pacific as another way to maybe find some flights between California and Vietnam. We are going to search from LAX over to Hanoi. Let's say that we want business class. Let's just search for one person for now on a one-way flight departing on early March. So we see that there's nothing available on the 6th, which is the first date that I tried. But if we click on one of these other dates, then we can fly from LAX to Hong Kong with one stop. We can fly from LAX to Hong Kong and then over to Hanoi for 85,000 Asia miles. If you enjoy these types of step-by-step tutorials, but you're not really sure how to apply it to your specific situation, we can prepare personalized step-by-step video guides for how to find and book the award travel that you want through the GeoBreeze Travel Patreon. Each month, we also have group coaching where you can ask me any questions that you have about earning more points, redeeming points, or credit cards. Like questions about the kind of stuff that I can't really talk about on Instagram or YouTube. You can sign up by going to patreon.com/geobreezetravel or by clicking the link in the description box. We do have one more tutorial for you, and that's how to book an around-the-world trip using Cathay Pacific. In the coaching session, we mentioned booking an around-the-world trip with ANA, and we have a full podcast episode about that method linked here. However, there are some challenges with booking an around-the-world trip with ANA, like the fact that Amex is the only flexible points currency that you can use for it, and it takes 3 days to transfer over the points. So, here's how to book a similar trip with Cathay Pacific miles instead. Let's talk about how to book an around-the-world trip using Cathay Pacific Asia miles. I found this article by Upgraded Points particularly helpful. 13 ways to redeem Cathay Pacific Asia miles for max value. So what you do is you find this article on Google, you scroll down past all of these different credit card ads, and then the first one is plan an epic one-world round-the-world trip. There are a few different rules that you need to keep in mind. The first one is that whatever your home airport is, where you're starting out, whether it's New York or Los Angeles, you need to make sure that you are ending in the exact same airport for this to price out. So here, start with New York, end in New York. Here, start with LA, end in LA. Second, you can have about 6 segments here, all with different One World partners, and that means that you can use things like Alaska, American Airlines, British Airways, Cathay, Iberia for Spain, Finnair for Finland, Japan Airlines, Malaysia, Qantas, Qatar, Royal Air Maroc, Royal Jordanian, Sri Lankan Airlines, Fiji Airways, and Oman. You have quite a few different options for airlines that you can use to put together your itinerary. You can use 3 or more One World airlines when Cathay Pacific is one of the carriers, but you can only use up to 2 One World airlines when Cathay Pacific is not one of the carriers. Therefore, you are heavily incentivized to make sure that Cathay Pacific shows up somewhere in your itinerary. And the easiest way to do that is to make sure that one of your stops is going to be in Hong Kong. If you price all of this out, the entire itinerary is going to cost about 210,000 Asia miles. That is more expensive than the ANA round the world price of 125,000 miles for 8 stops. However, Cathay Pacific does have some advantages. First one is that you are not limited to only using Amex points as your transferable currency. With ANA, you can only use Amex points to transfer those over, and you have to wait 3 days for the points transferred to complete. which is not the case with Cathay Pacific. You can pool together Amex, Capital One, Citi, and Bill points, and you don't have to wait 3 days. And also, I think it's a lot easier to find award space using Cathay Pacific using the methods that we're about to show you. Since you want to make sure that Hong Kong is one of your stops so that you have at least one of your carriers on Cathay Pacific, I would just start with cathaypacific.com. We're going to click on redeem flights. Let's just do one way at a time, and let's go from LAX to Hong Kong. Let's say we want business class, one adult for now, and that we want to do this, let's say March 1st. So if you only wanted to do this first piece, it would be 70,000 points. However, we are going to string a whole bunch of these together to save some miles. So let's go ahead and click on search flights for this. And so here it says there's no business class available, but there is first class. So independently, I would definitely jump on this because you can fly Cathay Pacific first class, which is supposed to be one of the best first class products in the world, for only 110,000 miles one way from Los Angeles to Hong Kong. However, we don't want to do that for this particular route, or else it's going to price the entire thing up higher. We want to book everything in business class if possible. So let's click a couple days back and say that we want to start this trip on February 27. And here, this is going to be on Cathay Pacific, and I would just write down this flight number CX881 from LAX over to Hong Kong. So you can see with Cathay Pacific, they do have this flexible calendar where it'll show you a week of availability at a time. However, for the rest of the flights, I would not use Cathay Pacific. I would instead use American Airlines because they let you see an entire month of availability at a time. The reason that we search for the Cathay Pacific flight on Cathay Pacic's own website is that sometimes you won't be able to see it on a partner airline like American Airlines, but it is available through Cathay Pacific. For everything else in this itinerary, whether we want to book things through Oman, Fiji, Qatar, Qantas, Iberia, British Airways, all of those, if they're showing up on American Airlines site as a partner airline, they should show up with Cathay Pacific's partner program as well. So here we have our flight from LAX to Hong Kong mapped out. Let's now try to go from Hong Kong somewhere else. So say we want to go from Hong Kong to Australia. Let's try to go to Perth. And we are okay with any dates that are after February 27th, so let's try March 1st. We are booking one way, redeeming points, one passenger for now. Let's click on search. Nothing available on that date, so let's open up the calendar and say we want business or first class. We have these two dates as options, so let's look at March 5th. We have a business class flight. This one is operated by Cathay Pacific as well, from Hong Kong over to Perth. So I would just write down this flight number CX171, and that gets us to our next flight. So then we need to search from Perth over to our next stop. Let's say that we wanted to fly in Q Suites on Qatar Airways. So we want to go to their hub of Doha. It's a lot easier to find these availabilities if you are flying to the hub airports for each of the different One World partners. So if you can fly to Helsinki here, or Madrid here, Hong Kong, Narita or Haneda, Kuala Lumpur, Doha, those cities are going to make it a lot easier versus if you are flying somewhere kind of random like Lima, Peru. That would be really hard to do with this. Let's say that you want to do Perth to Doha. Anything after the 5th, so let's try the 7th and click on search. Once again, let's look at the calendar for business or first class, and the world is our oyster. Any date is available for this, which does tend to happen if you're looking at flights outside of the United States. So we could either do this operated by Qatar, we could swing by Malaysia and then Qatar. This one we could experience with Qantas if we wanted to fly to Adelaide first and then over to Qatar. So you can pick any of these, write down the flight information, and then go from there. So now that we have the flight to Doha mapped out, let's say that our next one that we wanted to do is London. Airways tends to have quite a bit, so let's just go a couple days later once again. Click on search. And then, there's first class availability, but we want to stick in business for now. And so here we have flights operated by British Airways or Qatar, whichever one you want to do. I'd probably pick this one because the taxes are a lot lower. You would fly from Doha to London, write down your flight information, and then we're going to book the last leg from London back to LAX where we started. Just need something that's a couple days later for this example. So let's say we wanted to do the 11th, click search. And then here, it's kind of hard to avoid all of those ridiculous London taxes and fees. One thing that you could do is if you wanted to go through Madrid instead of London, that's not going to be nearly as expensive from taxes and fees, but you would just pick one of these flights that you like that takes you back to Los Angeles. So once you have all of your flight information written down, you would then come back to Cathay Pacific website. We click on Redeem Flights and then Multi-City. Then you could type in all of your stuff, but then I'm going to show you what's going to happen real quick. So let's say LAX over to Hong Kong. This was on February 27. Then there was Hong Kong to Perth. That was on March 5th. There was Perth over to Doha on March 7. There was Doha to London Heathrow on the 9th. And then London back to LAX on the 11th. So you could type all of that in and then say that you want this in business class, and then click on search flights, but all it's going to do is say that you need to fill out this request form. So once you're taken to this form, you'd have to fill out all of your flight information. Again, I, instead of filling out this form, would recommend just calling Cathay Pacific directly, reading them off all of your flight information, and then checking for availability live on the phone. And that way, if they say, oh, they don't actually have any partner availability with a given flight, like maybe with Qatar or with British Airways or something, you can have the American Airlines website pulled up on your computer and check for alternative dates in real time. And you can find the Cathay Pacific phone number pretty easily just by Googling Cathay Pacific Book Award Flights. I hope you found those tutorials useful. Viewer suggestions on future topics are always welcome, so please let me know in the comments if there are any points topics that you would like for me to make a video on. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, I think you will enjoy this video next.